Okay, folks, we're back for our first lecture in the last chunk of this class, which is sort of amazing that we've made it this far to the place where the end is in sight. And I think I alluded to this in the last lecture. We're heading into big things. So we've been super small, looking at molecules and cellular processes, and now we get to layer on biodiversity, which I don't know, most of us, those of you who are in my face-to-face biology class know that one of your lab activities is the terrarium lab. And it's actually one of folks' favorite lab activities because we're actually looking at things that we can see and touch and admire and be inspired by. So critters are really cool. And if you've come along with us this far, you've learned some of these cellular processes that are wild and, in my opinion, crazy cool that drive critters. But now we get to start looking at those critters themselves. So the process of evolution, biological evolution, is this bridge between molecular drivers and big picture biodiversity. So let's remind ourselves before we get into today's lecture content. Today we're going to talk about how biological evolution occurs. Like, what are the actual processes? How do we get from a single cell to multicellular organisms and what we see around us? Like, how does that happen? And amazingly, there's a lot of molecular things that go on, but we kind of get to stay big picture, which is nice. So let's remind ourselves of what the definition of evolution actually is. And remember that we're talking biological evolution. And it is a change in inherited traits in a population over time, over generations. So we're going to be looking at traits, individual traits in entire populations and how those change over time. Our plan for this lecture, we're going to look briefly at a history of evolutionary thought, and our historical focus is going to, zoom in on the most famous dead white guy associated with evolution, and that is Charles Darwin. We're going to look at some other dead white guys who contributed to Darwin's thinking. And it's kind of a cool story, again, about how the process of science works and how multiple lines of evidence can lead to insights in various disciplines. And then we're going to look at the how. So Darwin is the homeboy who came up with the how. How does change over generations happen in these populations? And he came up with one mechanism. There's actually three others that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the specifics of speciation, how we go from one species to another species, and we're going to wrap it up with the significance of evolution, and then we get to launch into our massive view of biodiversity, which will be the rest of our semester. Okay, you ready? Let's go!